Welcome to Conversations with My Sister's Keepers, where we bring awareness, share stories, and promote healing-centered conversations for lived experience professionals and allies in the gender-based violence and recovery sectors. I'm Shameen Brown, and together we'll explore strategies, resources, and insights to support wellness, recovery, and leadership. Join us as we challenge stigma, celebrate autonomy, and normalize the healing journey. Let's build a community of understanding and empowerment, one conversation at a time. Hello, and welcome to Conversations with My Sister's Keepers. Today we have Livia Miraglia with us, our sister's keeper. Livia Miraglia is a distinguished human rights lawyer with 19 years of experience advocating for justice and equality. With a deep commitment to fighting human trafficking, Livia has spent the last 10 years as a director of the Human Trafficking Clinic at the Federal University of Minas Gerais in Brazil. She is also a respected labor law professor, having taught for 17 years, shaping the next generation of legal minds. Livia's extensive work spans both legal practice and education, and her expertise in human trafficking has made her a leading voice in the global fight against this issue. Thank you so much for coming today, Livia.
Thank you, Shameen, for having me. And it's a great pleasure to talk to you and to share some of my experience as a woman from Global South, from Latin America, and from Brazil.
I know you've talked a bit about burnout and some of the societal expectations around gender, some of the barriers there in terms of just being able to freely express yourself, how it's affected your community, how it's affected the workplaces, this glass ceiling, these barriers around how you express yourself and how household duties and roles are divided and all these different pieces that affect the work and affect your work-life balance, right?
Sure. And I have to remind myself every single day that I have to practice what I preach. If it's something that I want for my daughter, it's something that I want for my students, especially the female students, it's something that I want for me, and I'm entitled to it. You heard me a lot talking about privilege, but I have to talk again about it, because when you are a middle-class woman in Brazil surrounded by privileges, you usually are a non-working woman or a stay-at-home mom. It's easy to get into this trap to think that I'm wrong because I have ambition. I have different ambitions, and I'm not judging anyone. We are free to make choices, but it's something that we have to struggle with.
Yeah. This sounds a little bit like the society in which you live has really reinforced the box you're supposed to be in. And listening to you say most women that have this level of privilege would be stay-at-home moms. So instead of feeling empowered that you're able to do both, you're feeling guilty and ashamed, because that's not what women are supposed to do. Women of privilege especially are supposed to do in your society, in your city, in your country. So that's a really tough place to be, because in Canada, where I am, we have a lot of liberal ideas and I think a great deal of diversity. Definitely we are colonized, and there's always elements of that. But if I want to walk down the street with a bra on and short shorts and do what I do, it doesn't really diminish my value professionally. Like, yes, it may affect my reputation depending on what area, what field I'm working in, but it's still not, I'm not less of a woman. I'm not more of a woman. I still get to have my freedom to a degree. And I don't know, as I'm saying this to you, I'm reflecting, is that really true? I don't know if that's just because I am who I am, and I've gotten to a point where I've decided that there are no limits for me, that other people don't get to define what those limits are. Society, government, workplace, I don't care. Nobody gets to decide that for me anymore. But perhaps 10 years ago, I would have felt, and I did feel, more confined in terms of, maybe I'm not going to be a great wife because I'm not a great cook and I hate cleaning. Or I'll say to folks, I think I should have been born a man. I really like to work. So it's still actually, absorbing some of those boxes, those confines, but consistently trying to remain alert to that and to restore it, because it's not true. And it's not how I define womanhood. It's coming from outside of me. In the same way that your environment right now, your society, is coming from outside of you, and we internalize those expectations and beliefs. decolonizing as
Yeah.
part of that is unpacking and deciding what do I believe? How do I want to live? And then, of course, some of our own personal stuff like imposter syndrome and those things in terms of some of the things that you've struggled with in your career. If you think about your early career versus now, what would you say some of the different struggles are in this work? This anti-trafficking work. And that might be like, again, emotionally, the way the work impacted you and your ability to move through that in a good way and process. It might be stuff in your life that you were trying to figure out when you first started your career versus now, I'm guessing there's a lot of systemic stuff and things like that.
It is. It is. It's perfect. You got to the point of it. We are still in this place here in Brazil that it's a long way. Actually, Brazil was the last country in America to abolish slavery. You could say from a perspective of 137 years ago, we were living in a society that had slaves. And we lived through a dictatorship until 1988. So we are this society that it's free for only 137 years. And we have the society that it's building its democracy for the past 30 something years. So we're really a new society. I was born in 1982 and we were still living in a dictatorship. And we are this society that we are talking about decolonization in law school for the last, I think, 5 years. All these decolonizing theories, and we're studying them. And even though they are not new, it's really new for us to be studying. We read things that were written in the 1970s and 1980s, and they are still so actual for our society.
Right.
I think that when we started dealing with human trafficking and slave labor here in Brazil was a really recent. I think in the beginning, the thing that I struggled most in my career was to raise awareness of the topic of human trafficking and slave labor. I have been dealing with it my whole life, my whole professional life. I have 19 years of experience in the field of human trafficking and slave labor and human rights and labor law. So I've been doing this almost half of my life now. And in the beginning, people would say to me that there was no such thing as human trafficking and slave labor. We didn't have a lot of researchers. We didn't have data. We didn't have scientific articles. We didn't have books. We didn't have things to study. So we had to produce the researchers. And with that, we were producing all this scientific and conducting all this serious research and studies and producing books and articles and all these things. But on the other side, people would not trust that this was still happening. We still have this problem to convince people that it still happens. But now I think we have another problem because people think that, oh, they are poor and they are getting some work at least or some place to stay so they can be exploited and they don't need to get paid salary. It's okay to work just for food. So we deal with this kind of speeches that are underestimating this situation of exploitation, that it's a crime to submit someone to slavery-like conditions. So this is professionally the thing we do most, this duality that actually we are seeing the whole world, this duality, the political duality that puts people in this left and right and in this war of data and manipulating data and numbers. We are always trying to go against this, trying to prove ourselves with the numbers, the data, and the research. So I feel all the time I have to prove myself as a professional. And I'm not saying myself like personally, I'm proving the case. I'm proving there is human trafficking, there is slave labor. That's a big question. Let's deal with it. And personally, I think the biggest difference between my early career and now is that when I wasn't a mother, my daughter is 11 and my son is 9, I really thought I was equal with my brother, that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And that's something really interesting about my story personally, because that was when I got pregnant with my first child. She's a girl, that I got back to my feminist studies, because that's when it hit me like a train that I was in an equal society. I would not get the same chances as the father. I would not get the good life of the father. So I think that's the biggest difference from my early career to now, that the gender gap really got into my life, and and the gap is real, and we have to fight for it. So personally, I think I'm still struggling with this, and hopefully, if you interview me in 5 or 6 years, they're going to be older. And I'm going to say to you that the motherhood is not so much of a struggle.
It's not just a gender gap, it's a gender overlap. We are not just being asked to do one job, we are being asked to do all the jobs. If I have a child tomorrow and I decide that I never want to look after that child again, I'm a terrible human being. But how many men do that on a regular basis? This is not just about a gender gap. It's about an overlap in expectations. And that doesn't make anyone who's trying to do it all a bad mom. It highlights or underscores the need for society to catch up and see us. That's not a testimony to bad mothering. That's a testimony to unsupported mothering that is exhausting.
That's perfect.
I really like what you said about trying to get out there and show people that trafficking is an issue, and being met with people who just really didn't want to believe it and didn't want to see it. What was that experience for you emotionally? And how did you cope with that so that you could stay in the work?
Emotionally, it's really stating, because you have to keep convincing people, and people are like, oh, but are you not manipulating these numbers? I'm not manipulating numbers, but the numbers are not showing the truth, because the official numbers, they are low, they are marginalized, but society doesn't want to see. A really nice book from José Saramago, that there is a movie, it's an American movie with Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo, but it's a story about a society that everyone goes blind, and it's a white blindness, like everyone only can see white in front of them. And there is only this woman that can see, and she's the only one that it's seeing. And she's talking with the husband that it's also blind. And he asks her, why do you think we got blind? And she said, I think we didn't got blind. We were already blinds that were seeing, but were refusing to see reality. So I think that's an analogy with the human trafficking and slave labor situation. We are pretending not to see that situation, because it's more comfortable for ourselves as society to pretend that they don't exist.
I would agree with that. Absolutely. What has helped you most in maintaining your wellness?
I run, and I think running, it's not only to stay fit or anything, it's a matter of mental health. It's been 13 years that I run. I have run a lot of half marathons, and I'm planning to go to my first marathon maybe in the next 2 years or so. Not sure about it, but I think running is the thing that got me sane through all of the problems I had in my life. And it's a way to keep my sanity, to keep my mental health. It's my time with myself. I run by myself, and I like to run long distance, 10 kilometers. I like to go by myself, and that's my moment of the day. And yoga also had saved my life in the past year. So I think this is, for me, it's a perfect combination, yoga plus running. But then running has this special place in my life, in my heart. And if I don't get to run in that week, you're going to find me in a bad mood. And I think it changes my whole day. I go for a run and I solve all my problems. Running.
You're thinking and you're processing. I'm a runner too, not no 15K runner. That's crazy. Maybe one day, I don't know. 5 is really comfortable for me. I love running. I think that it's really great for endorphins. I love your philosophy around practicing wellness for your mental health, not practicing wellness for the external gaze. And so what I mean by external gaze is how much do I weigh? How many inches am I? Am I pretty yet? It's that external gaze, people on the outside of you and wanting their approval and wanting to be good enough. And all of these things that we do to ourselves that we attach to nutrition and diet and exercise. But really, I love that idea of centering in. It can be about mental health. What it's really about is loving yourself, spending time with yourself, nurturing yourself. And some folks will say, oh, those things aren't really self-care, or those things aren't really self-love. They're not good because they're hard to do and we don't enjoy doing them. I say, find a movement that you do. It could be swimming, it could be stretching, it could be find a movement that you do and invite yourself to sit in your body, to feel what feels good in your body, to pay attention to your heart rate, your breath, which is the work that we're taught in yoga. Also love yoga. Have you found that over the years, your wellness practices and the things that you need for wellness have changed at all or developed, maybe even?
Yeah, I think the hardest years I had were the years I got stronger first in my body. And I'm saying with more not concerning about the physics, the physical, but I could see physically that I was getting stronger. And I would joke with my friends that I was getting stronger in my body, but the real result of it was getting stronger in my mind. I can see from the photographs that the hardest years were the years I was physically more stronger than I was in the other years. It seems contradictory, but it's not, because when you were full of problems and your head is full, I was keeping my exercise routine really on the going because it was on the only thing I could control.
Yes.
A sense that the thing I can control is my running. It's my time with myself, running and doing my yoga. It's the one thing that I think that's not life changing. It's life saving.
You can tell when I'm really stressed out and life is going not so great because I start losing weight. And I'm not losing weight because I'm starving myself. I'm losing weight because I'm spending hours on my treadmill. But if I'm doing good, I get a little fluffy. I love your discipline. That's beautiful. Yeah. And hats off to those of you that can do that, clearly. But again, beautiful thing is that if I'm looking at these sorts of activities as wellness and having a relationship with your body and caring for your mental health, we don't need to get as attached to if we're doing it every day or how long we're doing it or how much of it we're doing, all the things, because the outcome is really just to do it. That's the expected outcome, that I started it and I finished it. So that's success.
That's why I like running. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm competing with myself, but not competing. I'm trying to improve myself. And I have to remind myself to breathe sometimes because I get really agitated and I'm this person that does a lot of things at the same time. It reminds me of breathing because if you're not breathing when you're running, you cannot run. This is a simple action of our body that sometimes we keep forgetting because we are drowning.
It's releasing chemicals and hormones, stress chemicals and hormones and others that are stored up in our body. We're regulating our breath. We actually by force have to breathe deeper, which gets our circulation going. All of those great things, gets our lymphatic system flowing. It's just generating improved health.
And for me, it's a reminder that I can do hard things because when you're running, it's hard. The good part is when you finish. But then, okay, I can do this really hard thing that it's run for 10 kilometers nonstop. So I'm strong enough to go through all these problems in life.
Yeah. I'm probably going to mess it up, but I read somewhere that that yoga piece and that deep breathing piece, it regenerates the brain. It heals the brain. Mindfulness really is what it is, not just the breathing, but the mindfulness, but it regenerates the brain. It can increase focus, motivation, attention. It can also delay Alzheimer's, things like that. So there is a lot of power in our breath and in the way that we move our bodies and the way that we engage our minds when we're doing these activities as well. Really great for our wellness. Is there anything else that you can think of outside of these pieces, what's helped you most in your professional journey?
Discipline. That's why it's related to the routine of exercise and running. And
Routine.
I'm a lawyer, right? So I have all these
Mm,
time frames that I have to respect. So I'm really disciplined and I'm really committed with things.
yeah, I
Like
love
a,
that. And what about resources, people, places, things that have supported your professional journey?
I think I was lucky enough to have been well prepared. I have studied in private schools all my life. I had access to English schools. We had to take extra classes for English.
I'm getting the sense that where we're going with this is when we're talking about supporting your professional journey, you're feeling like your education really was a big part of
Yes.
supporting your professional journey and getting you ready for that. Do you want to get into some detail about your experiences with
Okay,
school?
yeah. So I think all this education in a broader sense. So not only the good private schools, but all these extra classes activities that I had access to, like English classes, swimming lessons. So I was in this dance team, all these other activities that I wanted to do and I was able to do. And also my experience as an exchange student in Canada when I was a teenager, and I spent a whole year doing high school in this amazing country. And I'm not saying that because you're Canadian. I wanted to go to Canada. There was not another country in the world I wanted to go. And it changed my whole perspective of life because I had that never been so far away from home without my parents, living in a different house, in a different community, with a different culture, and with these different people that were supposed to be my foster parents and siblings, and this amazing high school in a little town in the middle of Alberta. So it was really something that changed my life. And I think that shaped my education and prepared myself to where I'm here. I feel I don't practice my English enough, but that's what shaped me to come here. That's where I felt comfortable talking in English. And I can remember the first time I dreamt in English. And I was like, okay, now I'm really fluent. I can dream in English. So I think all of this prepared me to get to this point of my life. And again, the discipline, because I had this amazing experience. Then when I came back, I went to university and it was a paid university. I didn't go to the public university here in Brazil, but it was a really good paid university. So this was another really important point in my life. And then I did my master and I did my PhD in the public school. So this was a big thing for me because these things cost a lot. Actually, my master was paid. So I had help from my brother. And then I got my PhD in the public university I teach. So it was a really dream come true. It was not always easy, but I'm lucky enough to have access to all of this really good education in Brazil to get to be a professor in the public university like I am. We have to go to a public contest. So I have to take a test. I had to do a written test. I had to give a class, and I was in this public contest with all these weird public servants. So it was a really hard thing to get in. And I have been there since 2009. So I'm completing 16 years of university, public university this year. That's it.
Ooh, wow. I love that for you. That's amazing. The next question that we're going to dive into here, when we think about survivor leaders, what advice would you give to organizations that work with them?
I think that the thing I have learned more with the most in this last decade as the director of the Human Trafficking Clinic was that we have to have commitment, to have discipline. We have to be really focused in what we are doing. We have to be organized. It's not just because we are working in most cases, nonprofit organizations, that we don't have to have provisions and we don't have to have goals. And I really like to work with goals and projects. So we have a beginning and an ending for that. And then we do an auto analysis of the work we are doing. So this is something that I would give them as advice to plan, do, execute, and then see what was good and what was not good. And this is something that we do on a daily basis in the clinic here. We are always organizing, reorganizing ourselves and trying to see the weak points of the projects and the good points, what should be done again and what should not be done at all again. So this, it's really big. And another thing that I would want to say, that is something that we learn, you have to surround yourself with people that are not only committed to you and to the organization, but to the cause. This really, for me, this is something huge. If the students, if the volunteer lawyers, they are not committed with the cause, it's not something they believe in, they are not going to deliver the job, a good job.
Be careful who you're working with. Yeah.
Yes, because I think everyone is born with empathy. But empathy is something that you have to exercise. And how can you exercise empathy if you not believe in the cause? If you're there not believing you can do something good for a human trafficking or slave labor victim. So I think you have to be committed with the cause and surround yourself with these good people that believe in the cause.
That's beautiful. I love that. Surrounding yourself with good people, knowing who you're working with, but also coming in with a plan and being prepared to learn from that plan and reevaluate. When we think about survivor leaders themselves, what advice would you give them?
Keep breathing, because mental health of the people that are survivor leaders that are working matters. You have to empower yourself. You have to take care of yourself. The same way you're taking care of people, you're not a good leader if you're not in touch with your real self. And you're not in touch with your real self if you're not taking care of yourself. So I think that's an advice I would give to survivor leaders, and to exercise empathy. I think this is really important, because we think that empathy is something that we gain, but it's something that we exercise. I think every day we have to wake up and think, how can I be more empathic? And to study a lot. Keep studying also. You have to study, you have to talk to other people to exercise empathy towards survivors.
So know yourself, practice empathy, don't quit. Is there a message that you would give to folks who are early in recovery?
I think to keep believing there is a place for them out there. I think I would say also keep running and keep breathing and keep going in the way that they have already got to this place, that they are being given the chance to have another life. So I would say to them, to keep going. There are people out there that are willing to help them, that are willing to run with them, to keep swimming with them, to keep breathing with them, to help them breathe. And they should not be ashamed to ask for help, to ask for a hand, to ask for someone to remind them to breathe and to keep going. And I think that's the message of encouragement, and that they can do something good with their experience, and they can help others, and their experience can save other lives. So I think they just need to keep going and ask people to help them whenever they need.
This has been such a beautiful experience, and I love it's taken a total different direction. I'll be frankly honest than what I would have expected, but also highlighted some really important things that are is super valuable to all women who are professionals, regardless of lived experience. And I found that really valuable. I think our listeners will find that really valuable, to be able to look at some of those bigger picture things. Before we go, I'd love it if you could identify somebody in your life who has lived experience of sexual exploitation or some other form of gender-based violence, who is working in the field that has made an impact on you. It's an opportunity to shout out someone and say, this person's had an impact. They do good work, and I believe in them.
I think I have a name. Her name is Bruna. I met her last year in one of the congresses we were in. She's a survivor of sex trafficking and she's a transsexual woman. And she's this amazing person that has an impact in everyone's life. And she's doing an amazing job because she got out of the circle of exploitation and of poverty through education because she found a teacher that believed in her, told us that he held her hand and he said, "You can do this." And then she managed to graduate in high school. She managed to get into the university and she's working in the health system and she is helping transsexual women that are victims of sexual exploitation. She's like this amazing person. She has this bright light, and oh my God, I'm a big fan of her.
Shout
And
out to
also,
Bruna Hasha.
yeah,
Thank you
and
for all your good work and your heart. And we are so proud of your recovery and the way that you're using it.
yes, she's amazing. She works with the elderly population of transsexual women in Brazil.
Wow.
So it's a really big work she's doing because nobody's talking about transsexual or elderly people in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today. Really happy to have had the opportunity to have this conversation with our sisters Kipa, Liv Miraglia, and yeah, let's do it again sometime. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Shamin. It was a pleasure.